Welcome to the Rogue Radiance podcast, where we take a bold, holistic approach to health and wellness to help you live your most radiant life from the inside out. I'm Jaime Heer, functional nutritionist with Better Belly Nutrition and a fierce advocate for supporting your health by nurturing the deep connections between your body, mind, and spirit. Each episode is designed to inform and inspire you with insightful conversations and practical steps, giving you the confidence to take charge of your health with clarity and ease. If you've been feeling like your body is suddenly playing by a whole new set of rules, such as unexplained weight gain, waking up in the middle of the night with your heart pounding, night sweats, or mood swings, you are not alone. Perimenopause is a transition that every woman is going to go through, but it doesn't have to be a struggle. Today, I'm diving deep into how to take control of your hormones, your energy, and your overall well-being so that you can feel strong, vibrant, and empowered throughout this phase of life. And I have the perfect guest to help us do just that. Christina Shadle is a functional nutritionist who specializes in helping women regain balance through diet, lifestyle, and other helpful tools like adaptogens and bioidentical hormones. Christina's approach is all about working with your body, not against it, so that you can navigate perimenopause with confidence and ease. So throw on that weighted vest, go for a walk, or snuggle up with a cup of tea, and let's get into it. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you here because the topic of perimenopause is definitely a hot topic right now. And I feel like, you and I are definitely in that zone in our lives, and being functional nutritionists, I think that we both can agree that we are finding that women are kind of gravitating towards us to help them with that holistic perspective on how to help ourselves during the perimenopause years. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you came to be a specialist in this area.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Yes, as you know, because we are best friends, I'm a 50-year-old.
Woo!
Yes, I just turned 50. So I'm smack dab in the middle of perimenopause. And not that that makes me an expert in any sort of way, but credential wise, I'm a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, just like you. And I'm a level 2 restorative wellness practitioner, meaning I went up to the hormones piece and then found my niche. Like, this is where I wanted to stay because hormones are so fascinating to me. And so I really wanted to double click, as they say, and stay here for a while and immerse myself in all things hormones. And, that's everything from a woman in her reproductive years and the way that those hormones work and fluctuate month to month, up to, postmenopausal women where the hormones don't fluctuate as much. But where I'm at here is this perimenopause, this like almost kind of trendy thing right now where women are finally, I guess, like talking about it a lot more, which is awesome because I love talking about it. And we can simplify it and say, it's kind of like a woman's second puberty. I mean, that is literally how I feel, because you kind of wake up a couple of the days here and there and you're like, it doesn't feel like the same body that you spent the majority of your life in. I mean, and it's not drastic, but it's just subtle enough and stacking up enough to where, yes, you realize you're changing. And there are physical manifestations, obviously, which we're going to talk about a few of those. There are mood things, there's sleep things, there are, I think symptom wise, I don't know how anyone can count these kinds of things, but I think it's up to like 200 different types of symptoms that can all be kind of traced back to this fluctuating levels of hormones in a woman's body that come along with this time. Like, literally every single woman goes through this, whether it's a surgical menopause and they have their uterus or ovaries taken out, or just naturally, we all go through some sort of transition like this, to where we go into our postmenopausal years, which is just the rest of our life. We have this time right now, and perimenopause can be anywhere from 3 years to 10 years, where you're just kind of in this fluctuating area of hormones, meaning our bodies start running out of progesterone, just like it's just downhill from here. And estrogen is this kind of roller coaster throughout this time. And that alone right there equals all of the symptoms that women experience during this time. And there's some weird ones. Where do you want to start?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So, when do you feel like women are starting to experience that, like, I'm noticing that things are starting to change? Do you think, is there a specific time frame, or is it just all across the board?
I mean, for every woman, it is probably different. I mean, I always recommend, highly recommend, women even in their late 30s starting to get really curious about maybe what is coming up in your life. I mean, I wrote an entire course on this to kind of try to prepare women for this time so that you have this knowledge under your belt, like a toolkit, so that you can kind of go back and reference and be like, oh my God, what was that symptom? Oh, it's my progesterone is declining. It's because of that. But there's also ways of you can talk to like your mother if that's an option and find out when she went through this transition. She probably won't remember, like my mother.
Totally.
It's just one of those things where again, like women didn't used to talk about it. We're so much more in tune now as, this generation that we kind of dig into things, and I think women before, and I think this is true of all women, we're that I'm fine species, like everything's fine, nothing's happening, like hair's falling out, I feel like a crazy person, but I'm fine. And I think I think it's still true of a lot of people that just kind of want to put things aside until like something actually big happens. But, these are all little ramping up things. So for every single woman, it's different, and that symptoms will manifest in a lot of different ways. But I think one of the main things that most women experience and kind of notice because it really truly disturbs their lives is sleep. We stop being able to sleep as well because of that declining progesterone. And that's true even as a cycling woman, like right before our periods, our progesterone starts to dip. And a lot of people kind of have that pre-period insomnia. You're just kind of laying there like, great, but as day by day by day, and you start noticing it more and more, it starts affecting your life, then you're kind of going, wait, something's happening in my body. This isn't the same. Like I've taken all the magnesium, I've taken all the things. It's just still pervasive in my life. Just this kind of inability to get this really deep sleep because of this declining progesterone. That's our calming hormone, the one that helps us fall asleep, stay asleep. It's supportive of that deep rest. And as it starts going away, we stop sleeping as well, which really sucks.
Well, that's something I notice, and especially with my friends and my clients who are in similar age range. So I'm 39, and I have lots of friends ranging from 30 up till their 60s, but definitely around this time where we start to notice, yeah, sleep, not sleeping as well, 1 to 3 a.m., waking up, and then also alcohol. Like I cannot process alcohol the way that I used to. And I think for me, that's definitely something that has made me think, yeah, what is going on in my body that is changing, that makes it so that I'm more affected by these things, and I'm more often waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning.
In traditional Chinese medicine, and I'm not an expert in that at all, but this is one thing that I do know. They call the 3 a.m. wake up the liver hour. So that's when our liver is trying to do its job. And as you know, as a type 1 diabetic, that's when our liver tells our body to release extra glucose into our bloodstream so that we don't die as we're laying there sleeping. Sleeping is this giant long fast where our body tries to maintain this homeostasis of keeping sugar in our bloodstreams to keep us alive and all the functions working. So that's a process, that's a major liver process and our liver has this major job of doing that among a million other things. It's not a million, I think it's like 250 other things. Similar to like how many symptoms are in perimenopause, our liver has that many jobs. But another huge job of our liver is to package up toxins and used up hormones that we encounter and use in our daily life, and then package them up, process them for elimination. So that's also a hard job. And alcohol happens to, I call alcohol the bitchy friend, the one that needs you to pay attention to it because it's just going to keep knocking on the door. So if you have a couple drinks, which a lot of perimenopausal women are in this phase of dealing with little kids or just having work stress, and there's the
Well,
mom
elderly
juice,
parents.
elderly parents. And, we want that, or we used to be able to use alcohol as a little relaxing kind of thing. And as we know now, we know that hangovers are harder now, they're harsher. Our liver is having a harder time processing it because of all of the other extra jobs that it's trying to do. And we live in a toxic world too. So it's still trying to process these toxins that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. But if we've got things like estrogen is a big one. So as we go through perimenopause, it's the one that goes up and down, and it takes a really tuned in kind of person to understand, the signs on their body that tell them whether estrogen is up or down. For me personally, I know that when my estrogen is on the higher side, I get real sore boobs. It's just that tell in my mind where I'm like, ooh, I've got too much estrogen. Estrogen is that hormone that creates those more voluptuous things in our body. It creates the hips, it creates the boobs. And when I know when it's low is when I've got the flat boobs. And that's so much more common now than I ever had experienced in my entire life of having these states of low estrogen. But back to alcohol. So on that higher side, which is more women tend towards, just based on the way that most of us live our lives, we tend towards this extra estrogen.
Well, and that's to do with our liver and all of the like toxins in our environment too, right?
Absolutely. Like that's those fake estrogens or the xenoestrogens that, we get from drinking out of plastic water bottles or, flying on jet airplanes and like or getting our hair done. Like those are all fake mimicking estrogens. They interrupt the signaling of our regular estrogen, and then they can also mimic, meaning like they attach onto the cells, just like regular estrogen does, basically like clogging up those receptors for our regular estrogen, which in turn leaves more estrogen circulating through our body, putting a bigger burden on our liver to kind of like deal with getting that out. It wants to stay in homeostasis. And so filtering excess estrogen is another bigger job. Pile that on top of having leaky gut. If you've ever worked with Jaime or I, or have ever heard of leaky gut, that's when you've got kind of poor gut health that leads into inflammation in the way that you've got toxins and used up hormones and things, pathogens too, leaking into your bloodstream. Anytime anything goes back into your bloodstream, your liver has to filter that again. So that's just another added burden on top of that glass of wine that you had to relax. So now your liver is just like, oh my God, maybe we should just wake her up so that she doesn't die. That's number one, like don't die. That's often why like that cortisol and we wake up kind of panicky. We're like, I'm awake. Okay. I'm not dead. Your heart starts beating really fast. And that's cortisol that, your liver has kind of triggered to wake you up and make sure that you're not dying in that place. Now you're back to this like awake state that's harder to fall asleep because you don't have as much progesterone. So that probably started happening for me more often when I was about 47 years old. That's when I really started noticing that, holy crap, it's been days. I haven't slept the entire night and this really sucks kind of thing. So again, these are all things that really truly bother everyone to the point where they're like, I need to do something about this. Something's happening. But it bothered me enough to start researching the hell out of it and figuring out like, okay, what do we need to do here? I looked, progesterone, bioidentical progesterone was one of the biggest helpers of all to get me to sleep. Because again, like we just don't make as much anymore, no matter how much Vitex or all of the things that you try, nothing is going to actually replace that hormone versus like actually replacing it.
Well, and I think that's such a good point, is really tuning in. I think as women, like especially our generation and our mom's generation, we were really kind of taught to tune out of our bodies. You're having heavy periods or you're having painful periods. Oh, we'll just put you on birth control, and so like hopefully the younger women are really learning, from the time that they're young now, how their hormones fluctuate, because I didn't start to learn that until my 30, which is crazy to me. And I feel like it's almost a way of patriarchy taking away women's power, just take this synthetic hormone and you'll be fine. Meanwhile, we didn't learn what all these ebbs and flows, what all these different things that we were experiencing throughout our cycles actually meant, and that a lot of them are warning signs. So it's like, the younger that you can start to pay attention to what is happening in your body and what those signs mean, then the better equipped you will be to learn how to take care of yourself and, through menopause, and hopefully not have these experiences that I think that a lot of our mom, like I know my mom still to this day, hot flashes galore. I think the cool thing and what I love about, you created this course to help women tune into that and realize, like, these are not just inevitable things that need to happen to us. This is a sign from your body, something's imbalanced, and here are the things that you can start doing in your 30s, in your 40s. I think even if you're done cycling, there's still so much to benefit from just taking care of your body and tuning in.
Absolutely. And I think too, like our mothers, I think, when I thought about, I mean, my mom taught me nothing other than, I did notice when she was going through her change,
Mm-hmm.
because she was a little on the crazier side, or at least in my mind, I was like, geez, mom, menopause, and we would kind of
It was
play
a
around with
joke. It was
that.
like, oh, menopause,
Yeah.
It's
And I
like,
think that she never talked about it and was like, oh, this is how I feel in my body at all. And she probably even was in denial a lot about it. And I think that,
well, because her husband doesn't want to talk to her about it, right?
yeah,
Men are not interested.
yeah, in that same, kind of patriarchal society, like, oh, are you on your period or something,
Mhm.
that kind of thing, which I think that, luckily we know better now. And I mean, I can honestly say that I probably learned more from like watching that movie Steel Magnolias, when she like put her head in the freezer and I'm like, oh, that's a hot flash. Like, you get that hot. That's what's happening. That's what's going to happen to me. And this is the thing too. Like, I have older friends who I like to talk to about their experiences. And there's plenty of women out there that have never even had a hot flash. So it's not across the board kind of a symptom, There's night sweats. That's more common, especially if you drink alcohol. That's a big trigger for hot flashes and night sweats, is having alcohol in your body. For the research that's out there now, when it comes to that particular symptom, the hot flash, there isn't a lot of research of like, this is why that is this. This is why we have the hot flash. There is a thermoregulator in our brain. And what triggers that is pretty different for everybody. I mean, they can point the finger at things like alcohol and stress. Those are big ones, or even blood sugar, elevated blood sugar. Those have kind of been stacked up to this hot flash thing. But some people, again, they don't even experience this symptom. So it's every single woman is different. And again, like, you can talk to your mother about this and see what her experience was. Some people have tons of hot flashes. Some people keep doing all of the things that we know to be triggers, like drinking alcohol. And I know I've helped people in my practice where I've been like, hey, if you're drinking, this is triggering it. And it has helped. So, it's that piece, that one is a kind of a complicated symptom. But again, if alcohol is in the picture and you have hot flashes, you're going to continue to have them. It's just part of the game, unfortunately. And that's kind of, women use alcohol to calm down, even though it's doing quite the opposite when it comes to stress.
Well, something that I learned like throughout, our getting our education on helping women with, or helping just people in general with hormones, but that was really helpful was when the professor explained that, your ovaries while you're cycling are what produce your sex hormones. And then when you go through menopause, they hand that off to your adrenals. And your adrenals are also responsible for your stress hormones. So it's like, here we are, in today's society where women are raising kids, working, whether you're working in the home or, at an office job, it's like, it's still so stressful. And then you usually have elderly parents because you're in your 40s and 50s. And then now your adrenals are supposed to take over your sex hormone production when they're already so taxed and so stressed out. And then your adrenals also help manage your blood sugar, which is a whole nother, huge task to take care of. So no wonder this can be such a difficult, trying time for people because your adrenals are going to not be able to take on that task very well. And then you're very likely to have those imbalanced hormones. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And when it comes to stress, like you said, we've got a lot of women in this age it's like the sandwich generation. We are sandwiched between children and elderly parents. And I have a client right now she is managing both of those things. And she is very, very stressed. And this is, out of all the things that we're working on together, this stress piece of the puzzle is huge. And, it's to the point where, again, like back to the women, like the I'm fine generation, she will put everybody else in front of her before she takes care of herself. And I'm literally just asking her to take 5 deep breaths before she eats a meal. And, even that can be really difficult, or at least in her mind, to manage this stress. Carving out, it's hugely important during this time, because again, like progesterone is this calming hormone. It helps us to modulate and chill the F out, because when we get really wound up, we are, keeping our cortisol levels at this elevated place that disrupt all of our other hormones, including insulin. So if you're complaining about weight, go back to stress. Like that's a huge piece of the puzzle. If it is, some people are naturally chill, and that's great. But that doesn't mean that even little things in their body, like even digestive distress, is a stress. So when I work with women, it's important to kind of go through a list of the potential stressors. I call it like naming the puppy. Like, let's find what those things are so that when you encounter them again, you can understand, here's that time when I get real fired up. Like I can feel my body, my palms sweating, or my pits sweating, or that heart rate going up. You can feel in yourself when that stress level is going up. And it's important. It is only up to you. Literally, you're the only person that can calm you down. There's no magic pill. Some people can smoke weed or whatever, but that's still a band-aid thing. Like it's important to calm yourself down on your own, because again, like, cortisol is this hormone that can steal from other hormones, and like especially progesterone, and make it harder for you to use that in your body if you've got these like elevated levels of cortisol. So even when it comes to testing women in this phase of life, I'll usually always, number one, go through the gut, which you and I both know, because again, there's stressors there that can't be dealt with even on a hormone level. So we always look for stressors in the gut. Next, we look at adrenal hormones, and those are the DHEA and the cortisol, because DHEA is a precursor hormone to these other sex hormones like progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. So it's important to have robust levels of that too. Usually women are on the decline. That's a hormone that declines with age. It's just, even men, it declines with age. So that's something that we can use to supplement with. We can add in some DHEA, and whatever the cortisol, sometimes it looks low, sometimes it looks high. Even if a woman seems like she is spinning her wheels all of the time, her cortisol might now have switched and just gone to like the rock bottom. This is something where we would bring in things like adrenal cortex, like the actual gland, from glandulars, we call them, to help support that part of her body. Also adaptogenic herbs. This is something where in my course, Make Menopause Sexy, I outline some of the best adaptogenic herbs for a woman in menopause. And I will just say right now, rhodiola is a huge, beautiful adaptogenic herb that you can dabble with. It doesn't take a doctor to prescribe it to you. You don't need to be like, what is the best time to use this? Literally just get a tincture, add it to your tea a few times throughout the day to support whether your cortisol is high or low. But this just helps your body adapt to whatever stress that you're encountering. And that's, again, huge in perimenopause because of the sandwich generation that we're in, whether it's running after a kid that's out of control or dealing with a parent that can't remember where their stuff is. So, there's so many extra stressors during this time that you don't need someone to tell you. I mean, you can take my course and be like, oh, there's so many things to do in here. And yes, but like adaptogenic herbs, you don't need a test or anyone to tell you about them. It just it's up to you to kind of like start discovering them, use them in a cumulative way, and see how your body adjusts to that. Stress is huge. That spills over into sleep too, for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, I think that people are starting to catch on to how essential stress management is. It's really hard, I think, for people to act like we all say in theory, oh, I know I should meditate. I know I should take deep breaths, blah, blah, blah. But I find that that's like one of the hardest things that when I'm working with my clients, we'll go through the whole gut protocol and things just maybe aren't totally shifting the way they want to. And I'm like, it comes down to stress. Like, honestly, it pretty much always comes back to stress. So
It's true.
because if you're stressed, yeah, like if your cortisol is high, then your body's going to downregulate all of your sex hormones because if you're stressed, why it's not going to worry about fertility. That's the last thing it's going to worry about. And it's not going to worry about digestion either because you're running from a tiger. So like screw digestion, I got to survive. So yeah, I think like that's such a key piece and I love that like you mentioned there are so many adaptogenic, like easy to incorporate herbs that you don't need a doctor, but also you do want to make sure you're getting high quality to
Yeah.
make sure you're not just like buying random Instagram things. Make sure you're vetting where you're getting these herbs from. But there's so many great options out there that people could kind of start experimenting with.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to Whole Foods or Sprouts and they have that brand Gaia herbs,
Mhm.
very high quality. Herb Farm, also very high quality and usually pretty much everywhere. So those are two right there that, start dabbling in adaptogens is what I tell,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things too where people forget to do something or, but if you can get yourself to start creating habits around preserving your sanity and supporting your sleep and supporting hormone production or even, like optimizing your digestion, these more than ever are key to start doing during this phase of life because again, there are so many changes that you want to make sure that you're smoothing the rough edges, because it can get rough for a lot of people. And, I'm sure everybody knows somebody out there that had a crappy menopause and is still kind of like tearing their hair out or whatever.
Well, and every little bit helps. And also, I like to remind people what you're doing now, no matter what time, no matter where you are in your life, like what you're doing now will affect your future. Start making those little incremental changes and you will feel better. And, you could even prevent Alzheimer's and horrible illnesses later on in life by taking action now, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes. And that, when you talk about things like that, these like preventable diseases, the studies that are out there are as a woman loses estrogen. So again, we all are just like on this steady decline of progesterone, starting probably your late 30s, early 40s. It really starts going in the mid 40s and it's just down, down, down. Again, like there's herbs like Vitex, aka chaseberry, that can be supportive while you're still cycling of helping your body to make more progesterone and your receptor sites on your cells to become more sensitive to that hormone progesterone, because that's another piece of that puzzle is that receptor site. But learning about the options of like things like bioidentical hormones is key as well, because progesterone and starting to begin to replace that even in a cyclical way, meaning in your luteal phase when we would normally have robust amounts of
which
progesterone,
is like the second half of your
second half of your cycle. So
cycle.
like you have your follicular phase when your body's like, oh, let me go pick an egg, and you're like building estrogen and you're kind of insulin resistant during this time. So it's a great time to like fast and just let your body kind of like
And strength
become
train,
this.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're like, think of yourself as like building a vessel to have a baby. That's what these ancestral bodies are thinking, and then we go through ovulation and we're like glowy and sexy. And this is when our
Because
body
in
kind of
order to
like,
like get a mate to come have sex with you,
exactly.
right?
Yes. And for those of us that don't have children, we're just like going through ovulation, hopefully every month, because there's so many protective things that are going on. And our body creates this, what's called a corpus luteum. So like with this egg sac, it turns into an organ, which the corpus luteum is
You're
what,
kind of like your egg, right? You're like
yeah,
ready to be fertilized egg.
exactly. And that's what makes progesterone. It's like this organ of progesterone. So as we get older and older and older, and we don't ovulate basically, because sometimes our estrogen is really low. We can't quite get there. And we don't have the eggs anymore. Like there's only so many we ever had in the first place. So our bodies are kind of, guess we'll just like go through this cycle, and see what
Well, and then
happens.
add on 40 years of, plastic, environmental toxins, perfumes, like et cetera, right? That's just making it harder for your body to do what it naturally is meant to do
Right.
as well.
Yeah. And that's why I think too, I mean, this is another little tangent, but how there's so many people that have to go through fertility to take the fertility drugs to help them become fertile. Is the receptor sites on all of our cells are cloudy. I think of them like dirty windows.
Love, that's such
They're
a good way to look
dirty.
at it. Yep.
Exactly. I mean, and there's ways of detoxing those estrogen or those receptor sites, like cleaning the windows. And that's
Clean your windows. But what's so frustrating is, especially like being in my late 30s, I have so many friends who are, trying to get pregnant around this time because they are, this is the time when we're financially stable. It's like, oh, let's have a baby now. But then, their windows aren't clearing, but they go to the doctor and it's never even brought up to them. Like, oh, let's talk about balancing your blood sugar. Let's talk about detoxifying your environment, blah, blah, blah. It's like, nope, here, just take these, synthetic, super high dose fertility drugs, which make you feel like shit, which make you gain a ton of weight, and it's just, and it costs $25,000, and I'm not saying that that's not necessarily like wrong to do that. It's just that there are other things that I think people could be doing, maybe
absolutely.
along with that to
I
try
mean,
to,
you and I both know
yeah,
that it's not, and it's also not just the woman. It's like
exactly.
men have dirty cells because of how long they've lived their lives. And,
Yeah.
so yes, there's so much that we can do, but that's Western medicine for you. And we all know,
Mhm.
that there's a pill for every ill or an injection or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, back to the place where, I mean, there's a book that I recommend to women, every woman that's cycling. And I have a young niece that I told her to read. I mean, she's probably the youngest person I've gotten my claws into as far as like learn your cycle. It's called
Yes.
Period Power. And the author is Maisie Hill. And maybe you can put a note or link
I will
to
for sure. I'll put it
bookshop.org.
in the show notes.
Yeah. And, read that book. No matter where you are in your life, even if you're perimenopause, it's enlightening. You finally, I mean, I think I didn't read it probably till I was in my 40s either, but it finally made sense. Like, oh, this is my cycle, and here's how to optimize your cycle and do things according to your cycle and feel empowerment according to your cycle. Like, there's so many things
Yeah.
that in today's fast paced life of convenience that all of us like to live, we just kind of like gloss over it all and wait for something to happen. And then we just do something about it. But for you, for me, it's all about prevention and setting ourselves up for optimal health. And that's just, I mean, if I can just like inject that into everybody that's listening or watching this, learn about your body. It is so empowering once you do, because then you feel like you have control. You can understand when your body is sending you signs or symptoms of something and get ahead of whatever it might be, including this like giant transition that is menopause. I mean, it's important to feel in control. Again, like back to that, like we feel like we're off the handle at this time in our life and all the other shit that's going on. Why can't we know about this thing? This is our body. Like there's so much that we can do to protect ourselves and prevent disease in the future by learning about things like bioidentical progesterone, bioidentical estrogen. That's something that once we go through menopause, we don't make anymore either. I mean, we do a little bit, especially if we've got body fat. But if you're one of these like very thin women that have always been very thin, you don't have a lot of body fat, you're not even creating that estrone, that estrogen that's still protective, but that gets made in our body fat. I mean, weirdly and sadly for those of us who don't want to be round, but
Yeah.
yes.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because weight gain is such a big, reason why so many women, I think we kind of ignore it until shit starts to hit the fan, right? And then you start going like, "Oh my God, what's happening? Why I feel like I'm working out all the time. I feel like I'm eating low carb, but like why am I still gaining weight?" So what are some things that when you're helping your clients when that's a pain point, what are some things that you recommend?
I mean, blood sugar is, if I can tell, if you can only pay attention to one thing, I say this all the time, Pay attention to your blood sugar. And that means starting every single day in the same way to make sure that your body feels safe enough to expend energy throughout the day to do all of the things that you need to do. A lot of women have a problem of it's not just like eating too many things or starchy things, it's not eating enough. So there's two sides of types of people. There's the women out there that start their day with a bowl of oatmeal and have a sandwich for lunch and snack on pretzels throughout the afternoon, grab a cup of coffee, and then have pasta for dinner. So there we've got a huge blood sugar issue right there. Your body has too much glucose. And if you're not active enough to be constantly like burning through that glucose and having your cells uptake it with insulin, then your body's just going to store it as fat. So that extra body fat it just keeps piling on and piling on and piling on if you never get to a place where you change the fuel source, from this starchy carbohydrate, standard American diet type of thing to something where you're focusing on proteins and healthy fats. That way, it's called metabolic flexibility, when you can switch from being a sugar burner to a fat burner and have the ability to go back and forth. Like that is optimal metabolic health, when your cells know how to do that.
Well,
And the
and
majority of
to
the
that
time.
point, I think it's important that people realize like it's not about always like you can have a little bit of pasta when you're metabolically flexible. It's just, right, like focusing most of the time on like fat and protein, and then your body will, yeah, be more insulin sensitive rather than women who like refrain from everything. And then now you're not metabolically flexible either, you know?
Right. Well, your body goes into this, like now we're talking about hormones too. When your body doesn't feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
it will hold on to weight. So like I get a little bit woo woo too in my practice and with people. And, we talk about mantras and things like that and little things to tell themselves like I am safe, and this food is nourishing and all of these things, because we need every cell in our body to be on board with our goals. If we are trying to lose weight or prevent that, they call it the minnow belly. I mean, I know it gets a little poochy down there and it's harder to get rid of like it used to be, like it would just be like, oh, I just not eat for a couple of days and it's back to being flat. Not the case at all when you go through this hormonal change, because of the fact that your body doesn't feel safe. It's like it's just holding on with that, cortisol kind of like tells your body to hold on to all this fat in case we go through some sort of famine, because we live in an ancestral body. So our bodies are purely just trying to like stay alive, by
Survive.
holding on to this extra fat.
Well, and that's why it's so important that women understand the calorie restriction, the overworking out. All you're doing is putting yourself in survival mode, and it's going to lead to slower metabolism, and you're going to hold on to weight even more, right?
Exactly. So, the best way to start a day is depending on where you're at in your cycle too. Like there's plenty of women out there who don't eat breakfast and they feel fine doing that, or they can do a fasted workout and they feel fine. But it is important for that first meal of the day, and not to push it off for too long, for it to be protein heavy. Like this protein piece is what keeps you full longer. If you're focusing on this macronutrient, if you're like, I eat eggs and you normally just eat two, I try to push people to eat three, eat four eggs, eat
Yeah.
as many as you possibly can, so that 2 hours, 3 hours later, you're not searching around for something else to eat.
Well, and
We
that's the
want to,
goal, right? Like you want to feel satiated for 4 hours would be ideal,
right.
right? So if you're
Yeah,
not feeling satiated, if you're having that like, oh, I'm craving something within a couple hours of eating, add more protein, right? To
exactly.
your meal.
Always. Or even in some more fat too. Like
Yeah.
added some more avocado on there, like
Yeah.
eggs and avocado with spinach, like that's cooked in butter. You can't really do much better than that as far as a breakfast.
Yeah.
And then the same with lunch too. When you get to that place, focus on that protein. So whether it's a can of tuna and you make a tuna salad, or a piece of salmon on a salad, or big bowl of like chicken soup, or something like that, to where you feel full again. And it's important to take the time to actually feed yourself. Again, like we're here to nourish, not
Yeah.
rush through
Yeah.
days and not eat.
Yeah, don't like shove a protein bar down your face while you're driving around. If you
Yeah, don't even get me started on protein bars. Don't eat them.
don't eat protein bars.
Don't eat them. Have a jerky stick, you know,
Yeah,
and then when it comes to dinner, make a giant stir fry. You know, like that's the easiest thing in the world to make.
yeah,
Everyone can make a stir fry. If someone else is helping you cook, maybe they'll cook a big thing of meat for you and you can like roast some veggies. You know, it's important to prioritize food, period. You know, like it's your job. And I have so many women tell me how hard it is for them to get enough protein, and it is. It is not easy. I mean, I'm not hopefully not oversimplifying this because it's not easy to do, but it does take prioritization every single day, especially if weight loss is a goal.
yeah. And well, I think that that's such a good point. Think of it like your job, you know, and if you want to feel good and if you want to look good, then make it a priority, because
Yeah,
I know from working with clients where I look at their breakfast and they either aren't eating it or which, you know, again, that's fine, I think, up until to a certain point. But depending on your cycle, better times to fast, but that's a whole nother podcast. But anyway, it's like once they start prioritizing the protein and the fat, how quickly things change. Their energy changes, their mood changes, they feel more satiated, obviously. So just that little minor change you'll notice an impact right away.
absolutely. And it's, you know, there's also this snacking piece that becomes I think has become a habit. By the time a woman is this old in her life, she may have always had an afternoon snack, you know, like, and it's just a habit in her life, or a mid-morning snack, you know, or a
Yeah.
handful of nuts, or, you know, here and there, or some crackers or some chips. Everyone kind of, not everyone, but I see this quite often in my practice where I look at people's food journals because we have them track what they eat and when and things like that. And I see these snacking pieces, and it's just, it is important to know and realize that every single time, if you're trying to lose weight, you snack on something like that, your blood sugar is going up, your pancreas releases insulin. If you're just sitting there at your desk snacking mindlessly, you're just storing fat. I just tell people, like, picture that chip, put it on your love handle. That's where it's going.
Yeah.
It's just going to live there
Yeah.
until you cut that habit out. You know, once you do, your body can now go, we kind of need a little fuel. Go scrounge around, find your love handle, use that for fuel, and now you're going to have weight loss. You know, I mean, we're oversimplifying like the spot of it or whatever, but a lot of people do have certain spots where they hold on to weight. You know, mine happens to be my belly. So any snack that I have, it magically goes there.
Oh yeah. Anytime I eat cheese, or like cheese and crackers or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, and I think we all do. So, you know, like getting these, like creating different habits around that. So, oftentimes I'm like, okay, well, then let's take advantage of this time you would normally snack and go make yourself a cup of tea. Let's get more
Mhm.
hydration in,
Good
you
idea.
know, add something in so that you don't feel like you're missing out on something. Like we never want to feel restricted or sad that we're losing our fun snack habits.
I
First of
love
all,
that. Like
clear
mid-afternoon
everything up.
tea.
Yeah, make a cup of peppermint tea. You know, it actually helps with cravings anyways. You know, and I'm not trying to create eating disorders in anyone. I'm literally just like, if your goal is weight loss, we've got to change those types of habits. No
Yeah.
matter where you're at in your cycle, or you know how close you are to perimenopause, it just gets harder in perimenopause to change those type of habits because we're kind of already set in our ways, and B, to lose that weight. It takes a lot longer for us to become and create that metabolic flexibility that can be easier in, you know, if you're younger.
Well, which is why strength training, especially midlife women, we're talking about, you need to strength train. Enough of this spin class where you're overdoing cardio, your cortisol is raging. Like, enough of that. You need to be building lean muscle because that is going to help with your insulin sensitivity, keep your blood sugar balanced. You won't have these crazy roller coaster blood sugar ups and downs, and your body will be better at burning fat rather than storing it away.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite, I mean, yes, I love strength training. If you can find a good trainer, do that. If you can get
I
some
just do
dumbbells, or
YouTube videos, but yeah, trainers are great too.
yeah, or whatever, you know, or just Yeah, YouTube videos. I personally, and I always recommend this to people because, I live in a big city. I live in Los Angeles. There's plenty of really great studios that do reformer Pilates classes.
Yeah.
Pilates is no joke. Pilates is hard, and it can be even harder once you learn about the machine and the springs and things like that. But it builds that long, lean muscle. I mean, this is too,
Yeah.
like in my Make Menopause Sexy course, I included an entire if you're new to Pilates, you've never tried it, this shows you how to do it. I have this great person up in Santa Barbara, Piper Hall, and she is my favorite Pilates instructor. And I had her help me with this course. And we did a whole tutorial. And then there's like a half an hour mat Pilates class where you can learn some of these basics and just getting little simple things off of Amazon, like a ring
No, not
and
Amazon,
not
but
Amazon, a
something else.
band, you're got to Target or wherever.
No, not Target either. Whittle it out of wood.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I have, like we can send people links to any
Yeah.
of this that is not Amazon, but yes, like some simple little things or just like a weighted vest or ankle weights,
Yes.
like adding on these kinds of things. It's not just for whittling our waist, it's also for building bone strength and flexibility as we age, because that is another symptom,
Bone strength.
that
Yeah.
we kind of don't know. We don't feel it happening, but it happens to a lot of women where you get, you know, osteoporosis in your elder years,
As your
we all have seen
estrogen
that little
decline,
old
like,
lady.
because estrogen's protective, right? And doesn't it help with like maintaining that bone density? And as
Yes.
it declines, I mean, my mom, sorry, mom, again, but like, her doctor wants to put her on this. I can't remember what the medication is, but it's basically like to increase her calcium. And the minute she started taking it, she felt horrific.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
like,
true.
oh man, I'm thankful that I have this knowledge now because I've started hiking and just walking with a weighted vest because I'm going to do the preventative things. And you can start at any time. Like I told my mom, even though she's 70, it's like start wearing a weighted vest now because that's how you're going to build your bone density. She's gotten off the medication because it was so horrible. But it's
Yeah.
like there's these other ways and these preventative things that we can be doing to avoid osteoporosis.
Absolutely. And the weighted vests that are out there now, like there's some cool looking ones that don't like, it's not rucking necessarily like that, like the men wear it. And that's when weight is more on our back. But these weighted vests really, truly just put weight all down on us. Like I have a 10-pound one. I walk around my neighborhood, every once in a while I get like what is she doing? And I've also gotten like high five kind of looks from people.
Well, I think it's going to be the norm. Like it'll be weird when we don't have a weighted vest on.
Yeah. I mean, I love a weighted vest. I go and I do lunges and I do squats in the park and
Yeah.
I walk, probably a few miles with the thing on. And it's just every little bit adds up. And again, this is all preventative thinking. Like I don't know if I have osteoporosis yet. It's not a test that I've run on myself, but I'm setting myself up for success. These are things that I would tell someone like me to do right now.
Well, you
Just to
always say to me, like, I'm coming to you from the future. Like, do these things now while you
yes,
still can.
yes. It's so true because looking backwards and being like, I should have started that then is never a good feeling. You know, Crossing things off your list now and being like, I do that, I do that, I do that is a great feeling because later we can be like, I did all the things, and if you still have things going on, it'll just be a lot easier to address.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And maintain your health now, make you feel good, make you feel confident, look good, etc., sleep well. But then also as you get older, you won't be as much of a burden on your children because you'll be in better health than
Right.
maybe your aging parents are now. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you because we had talked about like that mood swing shift that you notice. That was one of the things that you said that you really started to notice first
Yeah.
and how that relates to progesterone. Because the progesterone piece, like you've touched on it a few times, but I think it's such an important part of this. And the fact that you can very easily supplement with progesterone, and we'll include a link in the show notes of a really great place that you can start kind of looking into that and order that from. But can you tell me a little bit more about how that affects your mood, the decline in progesterone?
Yeah, and progesterone, it helps us stay calm. So the things like that we encounter every day, like traffic or annoying spouses or partners. And maybe they aren't annoying. Maybe it's not something that they're doing as much as it is us, which is so hard to, as a person, even myself, who feels like a calm person. When I've started noticing that my husband, who is also very chill and would never fire me up at all, like, but I could not stand him. It was like, what is he doing? And I'm like, it's not, I don't think maybe it's not him. But did that stop me from yelling at him or blaming him for something? No. So knowing that, again, like that's one of those things where when you look back after maybe something you said or a reaction that you had, and you realize that that's not something that you normally would have reacted in that way, this is one of those signs. This is one of those symptoms from your body, like something is changing. Yes, it's progesterone. It is that calming hormone, the one that keeps our moods more lovely. I mean, estrogen has a part of this as well, but progesterone is this key one. So a lot of women, even in their cycling years, in their luteal phase, that phase that's like right before their period and really close, when we start to get really close to that week before the period, that's usually the time when we feel a little bit bitchier. That is because our progesterone is starting to go back down before we have that bleed week. So
Okay.
knowing this, recognizing these things in you is something to just, again, like we are all losing progesterone. It's not like some months we have more, some months we have less. We kind of just steadily decline. So topical progesterone is something that I started using first. I now use a oral progesterone, 100 milligrams in my luteal phase. I cycle. The company that we're discussing, Brain Health, you can talk to them via telemedicine and they will let you know, maybe we should go up higher, based on your symptoms or whatever. But again, starting with a topical is something that I would recommend for anyone that if the mood thing is really getting to you, the sleep thing, try something else. Try something like a topical progesterone, because I found it to be incredibly helpful. Again, like adaptogenic herbs, magnesium, all these kinds of things are supportive of that. But when it comes down to the hormone that is on the decline, there's nothing that will fix that like the actual hormone again. So there's plenty of women out there that don't want to use these. They think of it as a prescription drug. It is not that at all. This is literally like if you had a thyroid issue and you took thyroid medication, you're just replacing what's missing. And that's the way that it should be seen. It's not synthetic. Those aren't used anymore. I mean, I think some Western medicine doctors still do, but bioidenticals are where it's at. Even the majority of other practitioners you're going to find those. If you start to discuss that with your doctor or other practitioner like us, or even a naturopath, they would be using bioidenticals. But it's also a really great time to become more mindful. Just sitting with yourself more often, managing your stress. If you're not a meditator, just sitting quietly sometimes, and reflecting and tuning into your body this is a great time to start doing this if this isn't something that you've had a practice of in your life. And there's apps out there. I use one called Happier. I love it. It's guided meditations. And once you do that, I mean, you can be like Jaime and go sit out and listen to the birds and be quiet. Little practices like this, it will be helpful moving through perimenopause and going into menopause. So again, like there's always a root cause somewhere. For perimenopausal women, it's like I'm on the progesterone decline and my estrogen fluctuates. Learning about those things, starting to understand in your own body what those symptoms manifest as. And there's plenty of them out there. I've listed a ton of the symptoms in my course. A weird one for me, probably the weirdest one, was itchy ears. The inside of your ears start to itch, which is the most bizarre thing because it's not like a random itch. It's like it really freaking itches and you can't understand why. You're not dirty. It's just,
You're like,
it's bizarre. So
I heard
that's
someone say their palms itched, which I thought was interesting.
yeah. So like all hormones in our bodies are these chemical messengers that tell our body to do all of these things, including like stay moist. So like our skin, oh yeah, like all of the areas for sure. But like, when for those of us who are a little more on the vain side and our skin starts looking really dry, like this is low estrogen. It's like we hate it. Our skin gets less elastic.
Yeah.
I've covered all of this in my course too. And there's plenty of things that you can do too. Like there's even skincare companies out there that are including estrogen in their skin care. So, learning about all this stuff before you get to the place where you're like, oh my God, I should have done something about this a year ago is key.
Yeah. Well, and you can talk a little bit more about your course in a sec. I was just going to say like that. I love it because basically all the foundations of health that we need to focus on at any point in our life, right? But from the perspective of perimenopause, menopause, you've highlighted all of that in your course, right?
Absolutely.
So stress, blood sugar, obviously diet. I'm missing many things, but yeah.
There's a whole skin thing in there.
Cool.
And I've gone through, basics of nutrition, even like how to read a label and what to look for on product labeling or,
awesome. To avoid those toxic pseudoestrogens, right?
Absolutely. Or like the things to look for, like, is regeneratively farmed better than cage-free eggs? Well, yes. So I've had that in there. It may seem basic, but I think it's so important for everyone to have this as tools in your belt so that you can help other people around you too.
Yeah.
So there's so many women out there that just don't quite take the time and to tune into their own bodies, that it's helpful to have a friend that can be like, hey girl, like I see you scratching your ears, like this is.
I see you screamed at me over something that didn't seem like it needed to be that crazy.
Right. Yeah. Like here's this progesterone I've been taking.
Well, and also for women who are raising children, and if you have children in your life, like you're setting an example for how your daughters and how your sons are going to navigate this world. So I think everyone can be better prepared.
Yeah.
By learning all these different things.
100%. Yes.
So how do people learn more about purchasing your course and working with you?
So I can be found everywhere at Side Benefits Nutrition. So whether that's TikTok or online, my website is Side Benefits Nutrition. My course is up there. And I hope we can like list it here too.
Yeah, I'll put it all in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, Jaime has a discount code that she'll share too.
Yes.
And
Make Menopause Sexy.
Make Menopause Sexy is the name of the course. Don't let the name deter you if you are not even perimenopausal in your mind.
Yeah.
You probably are though.
Yeah.
But it happens sooner
well,
than
yeah,
you know.
I mean, anyone can benefit from it, but like even in your 30s, do things now so that you are prepared and you feel great and you feel sexy through menopause, right? That's the whole point.
And like sexy is, that's something we all just want to feel. And that's a feeling where we feel in control, right?
Yeah.
So that's what the the Sexy and Make Menopause Sexy is all about, is feeling in control and, feeling empowered to go through this massive transition that is menopause.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I'm sure it's packed full of so many amazing tips and then lots of great resources to help women navigate what's inevitable for all of us. All right. Well, thank you so much. I've learned so much. We're going to have to do another pod because I feel like you and I could go on and on about so many different things. So, all right, Christina, have a fabulous day. And thanks again for popping on with me on Rogue Radiance.
That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and empowering, and be sure to check the show notes for links to everything that we mentioned. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone that you think could benefit. And if you have a moment, leaving a review or comment really helps spread the word and support the show. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram, where you can find me at Rogue Radiance Podcast, as well as at Better Belly Nutrition. I'd love to hear how you're using these insights to live a more radiant life. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.